Hi, everyone. I'm Rena Ninan. Thank you for joining us. President Trump says he is standing by Saudi Arabia, despite the kingdom's role in the death of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. In a statement, the president said our intelligence agencies continue to assess all information, but it could very well be that the crown prince had knowledge of the tragic event. Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't. He went on to say, I understand there are members of Congress who, for political or other reasons, would like to go in a different direction. And they are free to do so. I will consider whatever ideas are presented to me, but only if they are consistent with the absolute security and safety of America. This comes after the CIA reportedly concluded that the Crown Prince not only knew about Khashoggi's death, but was the one who ordered it. Joining me now, CBS News political correspondent Ed O'Keefe. Ed, how much of this statement on Saudi Arabia is likely to go over with lawmakers who have pushed for more?
Not very well. This is a pretty remarkable statement. First of all, I've never seen so many exclamation points used in a presidential statement before, but this one has several. Second, as the president alludes to, members of both parties are quite more critical of Saudi Arabia and skeptical about the extent to which the Crown Prince was involved in all of this. So this will go over very poorly with a lot of them. And it is notable that several senior Republicans, among them guys like Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Bob Corker, the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee, several other House Republicans as well, have said that this needs to be looked into and that if there is evidence that the Crown Prince and his people were involved, then they need to be punished in some way. And already in some cases there's been some movement. But pretty remarkable to see the president say, hey, you know, we may never know, in such an explicit way.
The CIA not only assessed this, that Saudi Arabia was involved in Khashoggi's death, but that the Crown Prince ordered it. What questions, Ed, does it raise that the president's not basing his decisions on intelligence assessments? You say that things are already moving.
Well, he alludes to it because he says the intelligence community continues to assess all information, but in his view, at least, this may remain an inconclusive situation. And I think what will likely lead to is questions asked about that, and we may learn a little more about what the intelligence community itself not only makes of the situation with the Crown Prince, but now, of course, of the president's statement here. Remember, this all was alluded to first in an interview that aired over the weekend when the president told Chris Wallace of Fox News that there would probably be a report issued this week before Thanksgiving. And this essentially, at least in his view, appears to be an attempt to sort of button this up, get out of the way, and go enjoy the holiday. But I think what this will ultimately do, this statement, is just continue this and raise even more questions about not only what happened in Turkey, who did it, but then why the president is responding the way he is.
I want to turn and ask you about Ivanka Trump, who's under fire for using private emails to conduct government business. She's been labeled a hypocrite because her father railed against Hillary Clinton for using, the same issue. How is the Trump administration defending Ivanka Trump this morning?
Well, her attorney has pointed out that this is different than what happened to the former Secretary of State in that she didn't transmit any classified information over her personal email as the former Secretary of State is believed to have done. And in this case, they also point out that it stopped once she was told what the rules are. What's sort of flabbergasting about this is that how could she not know what the rules were, given that her father was talking about it all the time during his presidential campaign? Be that as it may, it is likely to become the subject of some Democratic inquiries in the new year because we know already that House Democrats are looking into the use of private email not only by White House officials but other government officials. And so we'll see how far they want to go with Ivanka Trump specifically. But if you think that this is the end of it, you'd be wrong. This is likely to fester for a little while. And remember, we were somewhat aware of this earlier on because there were also questions about Jared Kushner's use of private email when the administration was just getting started. He faced some questions about it as well, and that's what prompted the Democratic inquiries, and what we could expect will probably be the subject of at least one investigation next year once Democrats take control of the House.
You know, Ed, Hillary Clinton never faced any sort of criminal prosecution with her emails. Is it likely that Ivanka Trump could?
Given the thresholds that were set under Clinton, it would take something else, it seems, at least based on what we know so far, for them to take up a criminal case, I would think.
And I want to ask you also as well, Senator Chuck Schumer has requested the Justice Department Inspector General investigate whether there was unlawful or improper communications between the acting Attorney General and the White House. What specifically would he like to find out?
He'd like to just discredit Mr. Whitaker. Remember that there are at least now 3 Democratic senators suing over the constitutionality of his appointment, and Democrats generally want to discredit the idea that the president can do this with somebody who was never Senate confirmed to any position. They don't see him as a valid head of the Justice Department, even in an acting capacity. And remember, there have been concerns raised about Whitaker because he had said in an interview on television last year that maybe what could be done is to reduce the budget of the Mueller investigation as a way to sort of undermine it. The president says he wasn't aware of that before he appointed the Attorney General. It looks like what Schumer's trying to establish here is that perhaps maybe they did know, and that that's part of the reason that he was appointed. But more than anything, politically at least, they're trying to discredit and discount Mr. Whitaker as quickly as possible to try to force the president to appoint somebody else to the role.
I want to turn now to the House. This polling caught our eye. Ed, CBS News' polling shows 49% of Democrats think Nancy Pelosi should be the next Speaker of the House, while 40% say it should just be someone else. Where do things stand right now with her speakership?
She's on par to win, and remember, it's a two-part process. There will be a meeting the week after Thanksgiving, next week, when members of Congress return to town for the lame duck. Democrats will meet together in a closed-door session to elect a new leader, and it's expected that she will overwhelmingly win that vote. In early January, however, she goes to the full House, when Democrats will put her up as their preferred candidate for Speaker, and Republicans will offer Kevin McCarthy, their leader. In that setting, Pelosi has to get at least half of the members present to vote for her, so about 218 if everybody is there. This letter of 16 Democrats suggests that she might be on the verge of a math problem, depending on how many Democrats are ultimately in that caucus, because remember, there are still some unsettled races. You put those 16 people there as no votes. They claim that there are other Democrats who also are opposed to her and would not vote for her on the floor of the House in January. And she's going to have to count every last vote and get as close to 218 as she can. We'll see if the list of Pelosi critics grows after the holiday, but she's done a pretty masterful job over the last 2 weeks of pointing out that virtually every major labor union in this country, important members of the Democratic caucus, long-serving, military veterans, other young upstarts that have wide followings have all endorsed her. And her team doesn't do anything to stop the discussion among a lot of Democrats that it would be cruelly ironic to unseat what would become the most powerful woman in American political history after an election that got Democrats back to House with the help of female voters. So for now, at least, she's on course to hold on to the position, and unless or until some challenger emerges, she should be just fine.
All right, Ed, before you go, though, I do have one more question. I know it's been a hodgepodge of various political stories today, but, you know, there's a federal judge who has barred the Trump administration from blocking immigrants who cross the border illegally from seeking asylum. How big of a blow is this to the president? And is this push to change the immigration laws? Where is that going?
Well, that isn't going anywhere this week. There could be discussion of immigration as part of the December 7th government funding deadline that Congress has to come back and sort out after the holiday. But look, this is one in a series of court rulings that have essentially, if not derailed, certainly slowed down the administration's push to revamp the nation's immigration policy. In this case, it's telling the administration you've got to allow people who are coming over seeking asylum to be processed the way they have been. Undoubtedly, the administration will fight that, and ultimately the best way to sort this all out is to have Congress act, and that ain't happening anytime soon.
Ed O'Keefe, thank you for joining us, Ed.
Take care.
You bet.